All right, so finally, let's talk about Miami of Ohio. I'm just joking. It's Miami, Ohio. I just said that because there was some guy that went to Miami that put something out on Twitter the other day where he got a little salty about how people say that school. It's Miami, Ohio, Miami University, the Redhawks, coached by Chuck Martin, former Notre Dame assistant. One of my favorite people in coaching, by the way. I absolutely love Chuck Martin. He's such a funny dude. He's a very honest guy, good football coach. Chuck Martin won 2 national championships as the head coach at Grand Valley State, and also, I believe, was the defensive coordinator for both of Brian Kelly's national championship teams, which is why Coach Martin got the head coaching job at Grand Valley after Brian Kelly left. So he went 74-7 during his 6-year tenure at Grand Valley State, won 2 national championships. Made it to the semifinals another year, made it to the national championship game in another year, and then 2 years and they made it to the quarterfinals. His last season at Grand Valley State, they went 13-2. Their losses were to Hillsdale and to Northwest Missouri State in the national title game by 7, and got the rematch win over Hillsdale, by the way, in the college football playoff that season. So that was obviously good. But when I look at this Miami, Ohio team, you look at what Chuck Martin's tenure there. He is now going into, his first year was 4. So I think this is year 11 or 12. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is his 11th year at Miami, Ohio. They are 100, and he is 56-64 during his tenure at Miami, Ohio. They do have a winning record in the league. They're 44-31. Miami of Ohio has been to a bowl game in 4 of the last 5 years. The only year they didn't go to a bowl game was 2020 because they only played 3 games because the MAC didn't really have much of a football season that year. So in the last 4 years where they have had a full season, Miami of Ohio has been in a bowl game. The year before, in 2018, they did not make a bowl game, but they still went 6-6. Coach Martin has led them to 5 bowl appearances in his 11 years. He took over a Miami of Ohio team that was struggling. They went 0-12 the year before he took over. Took him a little bit of time to get things rolling. If you remember, they had a previous Notre Dame head coach, a previous Notre Dame assistant coach there, 2 coaches before Coach Martin. If you remember, Michael Haywood was their coach. He was the last guy to lead them to a bowl game, and then Don Treadway took over and did not do well. So Coach Martin has this team rolling to as much as Miami can roll right now. They're coming off of an 11-3 season last year. Made it to the Cure Bowl, lost the Cure Bowl, but they, in a competitive game, they lost to Miami, Florida in the opener, lost by 4 points at Toledo, and then lost by 4 points in the bowl game to App State. They got payback against Toledo in the MAC championship game, beat them. Lost 17-20, 21-17 in the regular season at home. Got Toledo in a rematch in Detroit and beat them 23-14. They also beat Cincinnati on the road last season as part of their 11-win year. Cincinnati kind of got a little payback this year by beating them on Saturday, 27-16. They also lost their opener against Northwestern, 13-6. So they have been competitive in the 2 games that they've lost, but they obviously have not played very well offensively in those 2 games. I think their defense is scrapped. Their defense is battled. It's they got talent at linebacker. They got a very good defensive end. Their secondary is just kind of okay, in my opinion. But their front 7 has a chance to be a pretty decent squad when you look at what the Redhawks have done so far. There's nothing about them schematically that it's not like Northern Illinois where there's necessarily things that they do schematically that give you a lot of problems on either phase of the game, in my opinion. Offensively, they're a normal offense. Defensively, nothing exotic that they do. They're just a really well-coached team. They fight hard. They've got some decent athletes in spots. They lost a lot from last year's team to the portal, so they're struggling in that regard. But through 2 games, their offense has been a problem. They lost, as I mentioned, to Northwestern 13-6. They only had 267 yards of offense. Against Cincinnati, they were a lot better throwing the football, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But they threw for 356 yards, but only ran for 24. They only ran for 40 against Miami or against Northwestern. So their run game has struggled quite a bit. And throwing for 356 against Cincinnati is good, but Cincinnati's pass defense is pretty bad this year. They also gave up 302 yards to Pitt in a game where they blew a lead against Pitt and lost that game late. So Cincinnati's defense, not great, not very good. Miami of Ohio was able to rip off some big plays in the pass game in that game. And that's going to be the thing that Notre Dame is at to be concerned about is their run game has not been very good, but they do have some legitimate pass game weapons. Brett Gabbert is a very experienced quarterback. He is a sixth-year senior. He passed for 2,411 yards and 11 touchdowns in 2019. So this kid who's starting in 2024 was Miami of Ohio starting quarterback for 2 years, in which Ian Book was also the starting quarterback at Notre Dame. If that tells you a little bit about how long this kid's been around. Obviously, the COVID year, he was able to save a year with the COVID year. He also got hurt in 2022. And so he got hurt in the opener against Kentucky, came back for 3 games, got hurt again. And then he also missed time last season with an injury as well. Miami was able to kind of salvage their season, but he was on pace for a pretty solid season for Miami last year. Passed for 1,634 yards, 14 touchdowns, 5 picks, had 8.7 yards per attempt. And got hurt in the Toledo game, did not play the rest of the year. Comes out this year. He's off to an okay start statistically. He is passing so far this season. Brett has passed for 566 yards in 2 games. Really feasted on big plays. Actually hit 2 post routes for big long gains against Cincinnati. One was outside, one was inside. They ran a play action pass for a 54-yard touchdown against Cincinnati. And then of course came back later in the game and hit a big pass, hit a post route for it wasn't a touchdown, it was a big play to their slot receiver. And that's the only other thing that, in my opinion, Cincinnati has going for them is they have some very good, like MAC level talent at receiver. They've got 2 kids that you need to keep an eye on. One is Cade McDonald. He is the slot receiver. He'll play inside and outside, but he's a weapon in the slot. 5'11", 200-pound kid, 5th-year senior. Last season had 28 catches for 355 yards for them. Has not really been a factor at receiver for them. Last year was his first year in that regard. Was a pretty darn good punt returner for them last season. But this year he's off to a red-hot start at receiver. He had 8 catches for 105 yards and no touchdowns against Northwestern. And then against Cincinnati, he had 8 catches for 135 yards and a touchdown. So his touchdown was a shorter play, but very dynamic weapon, very good athlete, good route runner. The big play he had against Cincinnati, it was a slot route. He ran, pushed the guy was outside, pressed his vertical, snapped him off in the top, beat him inside. Just a heck of a play, in my opinion. And he's a talented player. You have to keep an eye on him. And then they've got another receiver that's had a bit of a strong start as well for them, and that's their outside receiver, big 6'4" kid by the name of Reggie Virgil. He is a guy that's had another guy that hasn't done a whole lot coming into the season. He had 1 catch in 2022, had 1 catch last year, but this past week he came off of a game in which he had 3 catches for 77 yards, including a 50-plus yard touchdown against Cincinnati. He had 3 catches for 32 yards against Northwestern. He's a guy that runs well for that level. Can stretch the field, big kid, good ball skills from what I've seen so far. So we've got a big 6'4" kid from Florida on the outside in Reggie Virgil. You've got a very shifty slot, quick guy also with some speed in the slot in Cade McDonald, and it's something that you have to be aware of. I mean, those are 2 good football players. Should Notre Dame have problems with them? No. But if Notre Dame's not locked in, can these kids hurt you? Yeah, they can, because you've got a 6-year senior quarterback who's thrown for a bunch of yards. Let me look up Brett Gabbert's career stats and give you a sense of what this kid has done in his college career. So as I mentioned, he's in his 6th year of college football. He has thrown for 8,459 yards in his career. He's attempted over 1,000 passes in his career. He's thrown 61 touchdowns in his career. He's rushed for 450 yards in his career, and he's also rushed for 7 touchdowns. So you're talking about a kid that within the next 2 weeks is going to go over 9,000 career yards of offense. That's a veteran quarterback. You've got two talented kids at wide receiver that if you're not locked in, if you're not getting pressure on the quarterback, if you're making mistakes, they will beat you. They will not beat you in the game, but they will beat you on particular plays. And so they're going to have to be aware of that. This is a unit that outside of that struggles. It is. Their offensive line's not been good so far this season. They've got good size. I mean, you look at their depth chart. They're left to right. They're 6'8", 307, 6'6", 324, 6'4", 316, 6'6", 316, and 6'6", 306. Their tight end is 6'5", 258. So they have very good size, but they lumber and they don't move very well, and that's a big reason why their run game has really struggled. It's not a very creative run game either. I would imagine that they're going to watch a lot of film this week and maybe try to recreate some of the things that they saw Northern Illinois do. I mean, that's what a good coaching staff should do. So I would think that they're going to try to take some opportunities in that. But overall, this just isn't a team that should really do a whole lot against you. But if Notre Dame's not motivated and focused, then it may. And so that's why I say we're going to learn a lot about this football team. Are they going to be ready to come out and play? Are they going to be able to be as locked in as they need to do and shut down this Cincinnati team or this Miami team? Because again, guys, I mean, the numbers don't lie. They ran for 40 yards in the first game of the year against Northwestern and 24 yards against Cincinnati. They've thrown the ball well, but that's been partly out of necessity. They were losing pretty big. It's like 17-3 at one point in time to Cincinnati. And it's also out of necessity because they can't run the football. And so Notre Dame's going to have to be able to get to Brett Gabbert. Because look, this is the kind of kid that if you don't put pressure on him, he will find open receivers and make throws and hurt you. You have to put pressure on him. He's also a quarterback that if you pressure him, will make some bad throws. I mean, the thing about Miami is they actually moved the ball pretty well on Cincinnati early in that game. I mean, I think it was their first drive of the game. They got close to the red zone, and then they brought a pressure. I think it was an inside blitz, and Gabbert kind of panics and throws it off his back foot, throws an interception into the end zone. So they had some missed opportunities in that game where they could have made that game a lot closer, but that's going to be a key for Notre Dame is you can't let him get comfortable in the pocket. It's a kid with over 1,000 career pass attempts. He's not going to get rattled just playing in Notre Dame Stadium. He's going to get rattled because you've got guys coming at him from everywhere. That's where he's going to get rattled. And so Notre Dame is going to have to find that out. As Ryan pointed out in the chat, their guards and center are not good. If Riley Mills and Howard Cross don't wake up in this game, I just don't know if it's going to happen. You know, this is a game where they should feast, and then hopefully that's sort of the catalyst they need to give them the confidence and the boost they need to get rolling. So again, this is not a great football team. It's a scrappy football team. Their defense especially is going to compete with Notre Dame. And I don't mean compete meaning like they're going to go toe-to-toe and stop them. I mean, they're going to battle Notre Dame. Their defense is going to absolutely come in and bring it on Saturday. You're going to have to be prepared to scrap against this front seven. If you play assignment football, if you play physical football, you'll win those battles, but you're going to have to earn it. You're going to have to physically earn it. And then I believe Notre Dame should be able to have a lot of success on the outside. That is a place where I do think Notre Dame should be able to take advantage of some speed. But in some ways, they're a lot like Northern Illinois. They're not super athletes, but they're veterans, and they're long. Their nickels 6'1", 216. Their corners are 6 foot and 6'2". Their safeties are 6 foot and 6'2". So, this isn't a team that's just a bunch of small, slow guys. They're a long secondary. Their D-line is 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", 6'3". Their linebackers are 6'1", 230, and 6'2", almost 250, 249. So, again, they're going to bring it this weekend. They're absolutely going to bring it. They're going to be well coached. They're going to be hungry in this game. Their backs are against the wall. They're 0-2. They need to do something to kind of get their season right. I don't know that beating Notre Dame is that, but they're going to battle. And this team desperately needs something to go right for them. And so they're going to come into Notre Dame looking to, they've got nothing to lose, folks, nothing to lose. So why not have some trick plays up your sleeve? Why not throw some coverages at Notre Dame that they haven't seen before in hopes of getting Riley Leonard to make a mistake? Why not run some pressures that they haven't seen a whole lot in hopes of creating some big stops. Why not use motions and shifts that maybe you haven't used a lot of to create some big play opportunities? Why not? And that's what Miami's going to do. They're going to throw some things at Notre Dame that they haven't seen, because Chuck Martin's a smart football coach. You guys get that. I mean, we all get that. As far as I know, Notre Dame fans have always spoke very highly of Chuck Martin, because we know he's a smart football coach. We know he's a good coach. And he's a pretty honest guy too, which I like. He's going to have this team mentally ready to play. What Notre Dame is going to need to do is make sure that they don't gain any confidence, and we'll talk about that in the keys to victory. But look, this is a team that Notre Dame should handle, a team that Notre Dame should beat convincingly, but it'll have to be earned. That's a key, is it'll have to be earned, and we're going to find out if Notre Dame has the right mindset to go out there and earn it on Saturday. I actually was looking at this. Do you guys know that in Miami of Ohio's opener against Northwestern at Northwestern, they only had 12,000 people in the stands? That's embarrassing for Northwestern. They're coming off of a bowl game that had 12,000 people in their stands. Miami of Ohio had twice as many people at their home opener as Northwestern had at their home opener. And here's the crazy thing, they only had 11,000 people at their night game against Duke the next week. That's embarrassing. There's FCS teams that have bigger crowds than that. They've had 3 home games. Their biggest crowd so far is 12,000. I know that. Is that because of the temporary stadium? Is that all they can have? Is that the biggest that they can get? You guys said 50, exactly. They have 15,000. They can't even fill a 15,000 seat stadium. That's crazy. That's embarrassing. If you only have a 15,000 seat stadium, you should be able to fill that. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That's a good point, Raymond. That could be it. Look, guys, I get that they have a temporary stadium, and it's not the new stadium, right? It's somewhere else. Am I correct on that? It's not like they're remodeling like Vanderbilt's doing it. It's somewhere else. But you have room for what you guys said, 15,000 people, right? They're not even getting to that. That's bad. That's bad. And they're 2-1 and close to 3-0. They lost to Duke in overtime. So yeah, we'll see. Anyway, so that's it for today's show. I do have a couple super chats I want to get to from Raymond Harton. Thank you very much, Raymond. Go Irish, beat Miami. I'm with you. AST12321 says, my friend who watches Crute's social media, I would have a talk with your friend and say, maybe you need to find something better to do with your time than that. But hey, he said he's noted a pivot on Deuce's Instagram follows to be more Notre Dame focused. Used to be all Auburn last month. I'll tell you now what I tell you all the time. Do not try to figure out what a recruit is doing by what he's doing on social media. Just don't. I remember going into signing day last year, or not signing day, but when Kingston was going to make his decision. And Ryan and I kept trying to tell you guys, Notre Dame's in a good place here. Everybody else was trying to tell you, all the national sites, Ohio State feels good. They're in a great place. We kept trying to say, hey, listen, we like where Notre Dame is at. Well, but it's social media. He's tweeting this. He's liking this tweet. He's liking that tweet about Ohio State. Kept telling you, guys, we like where Notre Dame is at. There's a lot of reasons that could be the case. I don't really care to speak a lot about Deuce other than that. I put an intel piece on the board the other day, AST12321. I would encourage you to read that. That's the latest on where things stand with Deuce Knight and Notre Dame. So other than that, I've said it, even if Deuce says tomorrow, hey, I'm shutting down my recruitment and I'm signing with Notre Dame, I'll feel comfortable with that the day that Notre Dame announces that he has a signature. And that's when that's just the reality of it. So great kid, great player. Just don't really care to talk too much about that recruitment right now. And if I do, I'm going to do it on the board. So check out that message board post that I made. I think it was late last week is when we put it up, because I think that's a good indication of where things stand. So we'll find out if he makes another visit to campus. That'll tell us a lot. So until then, I don't have a lot to say about that one right now, but I don't put a lot of stock. I don't put a lot of stock in that stuff. What guys do on social media. I just don't. The only time it really matters if a kid takes all of something off of it. Okay, maybe that's a sign, but we've seen that Deuce has had a tendency to kind of jump back and forth on things. And so, I'm not going to get too down when he's talking about somebody else. I'm not going to get too up when he's talking about Notre Dame. You guys know I'm saying, let it play out. And we'll find out. Like December is when I'm going to care. That's just where I'm at on this particular one. So anyway, that's going to do it for today's show, everybody. I thank you all for being with me today. Really appreciate the time. Be back tomorrow, and we will dive into a little bit more about this matchup with Miami of Ohio, and then also some players from Notre Dame that we want to see step up. And then, of course, we'll spend a lot of time on our buy, sell, hold. So Salty has already put up the post on the message board about the buy, sell, hold. So there's already submissions in there. Make sure you jump on there. That is for message board members only. I have a full breakdown, statistical, and a 23-minute video breaking down the run game from Purdue. I'll get some pass game stuff up either tonight or tomorrow. And I'm also hoping to get some defensive stuff up this week, although I don't know that there's a lot to really break down with that. But we'll see when I get back through going through that again. But I'll definitely have some pass game stuff on there tonight or tomorrow, probably tomorrow. And then, of course, the run game stuff went up today. Some very fascinating numbers in the run game also. So you'll check that out. That's only for board premium members as well. You can't see that stuff. You can't see the video. You can't see the stats unless you're a board member at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Definitely check that out. You can get the intel piece that I put up on Deuce Night last week is still on there. Anytime you're looking for something, just click on one of the tags. So like if I've got an intel piece up about like the injuries yesterday and you click the green intel tag, it'll take you to a page with all of the intel. And then you can find like the most recent one. Same with the film room. If you're like, hey, what have you done past film rooms? I got a link at the top that has a link to all the film rooms. But then if you also hit the film room tab, it'll take you to all the film rooms that we've done at Irish Breakdown on one page. You can check that out as well. But that is definitely a members board, a members only feature, just like buy, sell, hold is a members only feature from submitting questions. So if you want to get a buy, sell, hold submitted, go to the message board at boards.irishbreakdown.com and you'll see Salty's post asking for questions for buy, sell, hold, and I'll bring those up and we'll have some fun with that tomorrow. Thursday, 1 o'clock, we'll be back with our keys to victory and preview of the Notre Dame game. And then also the national games. Bill Bender and I were texting about this last night. We are going to discuss, we're going to talk about Illinois, Nebraska, Utah, Oklahoma State, Tennessee, and Oklahoma, and then, of course, USC and Michigan. So those are the 4 games that we will preview and break down on Thursday. And then Friday, we will hopefully have a mailbag. So definitely want to check that out. So thanks, everybody, for being with me today. Y'all have an awesome rest of your day. I'm sure we'll continue some of these conversations on the message board and have some fun with it. So make sure you're checking that out at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Until then, or at least I should say until 5 o'clock when you guys jump over to Ivy Nation Sports Talk, I will talk to you all again very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.